Welcome back to the Deep Dive. If you're looking to really get under the hood of important topics, understand the core issues without, drowning in information, then you're in the right place.
That's what we do. We take a stack of sources, dig through them, and pull out the key insights, the stuff you really need to know.
Exactly. And today we're diving deep into, well, a really crucial area, responsible AI. Specifically, how it's being developed and deployed.
hmm And we're basing this on a specific document, the AI Audit Responsible AI Transparency Report 2024.pdf. It just came out in May 2024.
Right, an inaugural report, they call it,
Yeah.
from one of the big players in AI. And it sounds like they're really aiming for transparency here.
Yeah, it seems so. They're laying out their current practices, what they've learned, their goals. It's all about accountability and, I guess, trying to earn public trust, which is huge in AI right now.
Absolutely. The report covers, well, four main areas, doesn't it? How they build these generative AI apps, the ones making text, images, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh. And how they decide what actually gets released, plus how they help their customers use AI responsibly.
And finally, sort of their own journey, how they're learning and growing as a responsible AI community internally.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive.
Our mission is to pull out the most vital information from this pretty dense report. Give you, our listeners, a shortcut to understanding how this major organization is tackling the, let's face it, really complex landscape of responsible AI.
Okay, let's jump in. Where should we start? Maybe with the foundations. How they actually build these generative apps responsibly.
Good starting point. They talk about having a principled, human-centered approach going way back to 2016, guided by 6 core values.
6 values, yeah. I saw that. Transparency, accountability, uh, fairness, inclusiveness.
Reliability and safety and privacy and security. Been around a while, it seems.
Yeah, since 2016. So not just a reaction to the latest generative AI boom.
But how do these values translate into practice? Let's take fairness, for example. What does that actually mean when you're building a huge language model?
Well, that's a really complex challenge, right? Fairness means actively working to prevent the model from reflecting, or worse, amplifying societal biases.
Okay.
So practically, it involves things like carefully curating the training data. What information does the model learn from? Then using specific techniques during the training process itself to try and mitigate bias.
And testing, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. Rigorous testing across different demographic groups to see if the model performs differently or unfairly for certain people. It's an ongoing effort, not a one-time fix. And sometimes, there are trade-offs with other goals, like how quickly you can develop the model.
Makes sense. It's not simple. And they're backing this up with a commitment to annual reports like this one, even going beyond the White House voluntary commitments, they say.
Which is, yeah, a pretty significant commitment to transparency. And you can see why the focus has intensified with generative AI, can't you?
Definitely.
Oh.
The power to create realistic text, images, audio, it just raises the stakes enormously, both the potential benefits and the potential harms.
Right. And it looks like they've been trying to share their own learnings. They mentioned putting out resources in 2023 and 2024 guidance for Azure OpenAI service, something called the HAX Toolkit.
HAX Toolkit, what's that?
I think it's focused on human AI experience, so how to design interactions between people and AI systems effectively and responsibly.
Okay. And they also mentioned sharing info on red teaming large language models.
Yeah, basically stress testing them, trying to find weaknesses, figure out how they could be misused before they cause problems out in the world. They're trying to get ahead of potential issues.
And they've also released actual tools for their customers, haven't they? Like Prompt Shield.
Exactly. Prompt Shield is specifically designed to tackle prompt injection attacks. That's where someone tries to trick the AI with a clever prompt, basically making it ignore its safety rules or instructions.
Ah, okay. So this shield helps defend against that.
Yeah. And they also have safety evaluation tools in Azure AI Studio, so developers can check their own apps for potential content risks, hate speech, violence, that kind of thing before they launch.
It all seems to fit into this framework they mentioned. Aligns with the NIST AI risk management framework. Govern, map, measure, manage.
A cycle.
That's the one. An iterative cycle. So govern is the first step.
What does govern involve in their context?
It's really about setting up the rules of the road, the oversight. They talk about integrating their own responsible AI standard right into the engineering teams, into the whole development lifecycle.
So it's not an add-on at the end.
No, exactly. They apparently formalized specific requirements for generative AI based on this standard back in 2023. So right from the start of a project, thinking about responsible AI is supposed to be part of the process, just like thinking about security or, how well the thing performs.
Okay, built in. Then comes map, mapping the risks.
Right. MAP is where they systematically try to figure out what could go wrong. The main tool here is something called a responsible AI impact assessment.
Impact assessment, okay. Teams basically go through a process to identify potential harms their AI system might cause and then brainstorm ways to mitigate those risks. They also do privacy and security reviews like threat modeling to get the full picture of vulnerabilities.
And a big part of MAP seems to be that AI red teaming we mentioned earlier. It sounds like it's more than just finding security bugs.
Oh, definitely. It's a crucial point. Traditional red teaming is often about finding ways to break in, technically. But their AI red team, which interestingly, they set up way back in 2018.
2018, that's quite early.
Yeah, apparently the first dedicated one in the industry. Their focus is broader. They look for all sorts of potential failures, how might even well-intentioned users cause problems, or there risks related to fairness, bias, stereotyping, things that aren't just about, hacking the system.
So uncovering harms beyond just security breaches. And they do this at the model level and the application level. What's the difference?
Good question. Red teaming the base model, the core AI, helps them understand its fundamental abilities and weaknesses, how it might be misused generally. That informs the big overarching safety measures.
Okay.
Application level red teaming then looks at a specific product, like, say, Microsoft Copilot. How does the model behave in that specific context? Are the safety features built into that application actually working? They even bring in external experts for their most powerful models, especially looking at really high-risk areas like biosecurity.
Wow. Okay. So after mapping, they need to measure these risks.
Exactly. Measure is about quantifying the risks they've identified. How likely are they? How severe could the impact be? They've developed specific metrics for this.
Like what?
Things like groundedness, basically. How much is the AI's answer based on the actual source information it was given? Also, relevance, similarity, and then metrics for different types of harmful content. Hateful, violent, sexual, self-harm.
And they measure jailbreak success rate. How often those tricks to bypass safety work?
Yep. And what's interesting here is they're sharing some of these measurement tools. Some are open source on GitHub, others integrated into their Azure AI platform.
Like Azure AI content safety. That seems central.
It really is. It uses AI itself to detect those different categories of harmful content. And importantly, it feeds into the safety evaluations in Azure AI Studio.
Right, letting customers test their own apps.
Precisely. They can test against these known risks, including jailbreaks, using robust data sets and simulations. It's about enabling proactive testing, not just reacting after something goes wrong.
Okay, makes sense. So govern, map, measure brings us to manage, mitigating the risks.
Right. Manage is where they implement the actual safeguards. And they do this at multiple layers, like defense in depth.
Platform level and application level.
Yeah, think of the platform level as the foundation. This includes guidance built into the models themselves and those content classifiers like Azure AI Content Safety that work across the board.
Okay, the baseline safety.
Then at the application level, it's more specific, using techniques like grounding, forcing the AI to base its answers on specific input data you provide. Also using safety system messages.
What are those exactly?
They're like hidden instructions for the AI that guide its behavior. For example, telling Microsoft Copilot in Bing to maintain a certain tone or to always cite its sources. User-centered design is key to clear disclosures, FAQs, explaining limitations.
So multiple layers of protection. And content filtering is a big piece of that management strategy.
A very big piece. They talk about constantly refining these filters, improving their performance against different types of harmful content, and even using human feedback and powerful models like GPT-4 to help train and improve the filters at scale.
And they made Azure AI Content Safety generally available.
Yes, in October 2023. Customers can use it as a standalone API, and they can configure the sensitivity levels for different risk categories. Gives them a lot of control.
And that prompt shield tool for managing jailbreaks.
Also crucial. They launched that around the same time and expanded it more recently to handle indirect prompt injection, which is a more subtle way of sneaking instructions past filters.
They list 4 types of jailbreak attacks it looks for.
Yeah, basically. Trying to change the rules directly, embedding fake conversation examples, using role-playing tricks, and using encoding to hide malicious prompts. It shows they're actively analyzing the kinds of attacks people are trying.
There was also mention of a limited access policy for Azure OpenAI service. What's that about?
It means they don't just let anyone sign up and get full access immediately. especially to the most powerful models or the most sensitive safety customization settings. Potential users have to register, explain their use case, and get approved. It's a way to try and ensure the tech is used more responsibly from the get-go.
Okay. Now, a really significant part of the manage section and the report overall is tackling information integrity, disinformation, essentially.
Yes, a huge focus. They clearly recognize how AI can accelerate the creation and spread of fake or misleading content. A core part of their strategy is provenance.
Provenance, making it clear where content came from.
Exactly, creating a verifiable trail. They announced cryptographic methods for this back in May 2023, focusing initially on images.
How does that work in practice?
By late 2023, they started automatically attaching something called content credentials to images made with DALL-E 3 through services like Azure OpenAI and Microsoft Designer. Think of it like a secure digital label.
A digital label. What information does it contain?
Things like who created it, when it was created, and the cryptographic part means it's signed in a way that makes it tamper-evident, hard to fake or alter without detection.
And this uses an open standard, C2PA.
Right. Coalition for Content Provenance and Authenticity. They co-founded it. It provides a common technical specification using cryptographic signing and metadata. The fact that others, including OpenAI for DALL-E 3, are adopting it is a good sign for building wider trust.
But they admit metadata isn't foolproof, right? It can be stripped out.
They do, which is why they talk about a stacked mitigation approach. Metadata is one layer, but they're also testing things like invisible watermarks embedded in the content itself or digital fingerprinting techniques. The goal is multiple layers of protection.
Making it harder to pass off fake content as real.
Exactly. Though they do note that applying robust provenance to text is, well, significantly harder because text is so easy to copy and change.
This whole focus on integrity feels especially urgent with all the elections happening globally in 2024. Deepfakes are a major concern.
Absolutely. They highlight that explicitly. It's a key driver. In February 2024, they joined that tech accord with about 19 other companies, specifically to combat deceptive AI use in elections.
What does that accord involve?
It focuses on things like advancing provenance tech, better disclosure methods for AI content, improving detection of deepfakes, coordinated responses, and public awareness campaigns.
And they've taken concrete steps, like a portal for candidates.
Yes, a portal to report suspected deepfakes targeting them. And they launched Microsoft Content Integrity tools currently in private preview for campaigns and others to actually certify their own content, making it easier for voters to verify authenticity.
Interesting that they also mentioned supporting journalism and voter rights. It's not just tech solutions.
Right. They seem to understand it's an ecosystem problem.
Yeah.
Supporting independent media, working with election officials, it's part of a broader strategy beyond just building detection tools.
And the Microsoft Designer case study was interesting, too. They had NewsGuard evaluate it.
Yeah, specifically on the risk of generating misleading images related to known false narratives. The initial results weren't great, about 12% problematic content.
Right.
But after they implemented mitigations, including content credentials, the follow-up assessment showed a huge improvement, only 3.6% problematic. It highlights that iterative process, measure, manage, measure again, and the value of that external scrutiny.
Okay, let's shift gears to the second major section, how they actually decide when to release these AI applications.
Right. And it sounds like that govern, map, measure, manage cycle is baked right into this release process.
So the learnings from previous releases feed back into the process.
Exactly. They say the best practices, the guidelines, the tools they use, they're constantly being updated based on what they learned from the last launch, like developing specific tools to measure the risk of ungrounded content more effectively.
And there's a senior review step. It's not just the product team saying, okay, ship it.
No, definitely not. They describe a process where senior experts review the team's risk assessments and mitigation plans before launch. They do deep dives, identify gaps, ensure consistency across the company. It's meant to enforce a high bar for safety and responsibility.
And this whole process is iterative, adapting based on real-world use.
Constantly evolving, yeah. What works, what doesn't, what new risks emerge.
Their partnership with OpenAI also plays a role here, doesn't it? Yeah. They collaborate on research but commercialize independently.
Right. They highlight a shared commitment to safety, referencing OpenAI's alignment research and their own responsible AI standard. It suggests that even though they compete in the market, there's a baseline agreement on the importance of doing this responsibly.
They gave Copilot Studio as a case study for this release process.
Yeah, that's their platform for customers to build their own AI assistants or copilots. The map stage identified that risk of generating nonsense, basically ungrounded responses.
So how do they measure and manage that?
Through iteration. They worked with experts, tweaked those safety system messages, used the Azure OpenAI content filters, and really focused on improving groundedness. They mentioned specific metrics adjusting the underlying prompts, boosted the in-domain pass rate significantly, and improved the answer rate in just 1 week. Adding citations also helped accuracy.
So the outcome was a safer platform for
Yep,
customers.
that was the goal, yeah.
Yeah.
More trustworthy copilots.
Then there was the GitHub Copilot case study. Different focus there, developer productivity, but also risks like generating bad code.
Right. The risks identified included incorrect code, code that didn't match the developer's intent, and just general fitness for purpose. But the measure part here focused heavily on the productivity benefits.
What did they find?
Their study showed developers felt more focused, spent less time searching, felt they wrote better code, and even learned from the AI. Pretty positive results on the productivity side. Later studies on the chat version also showed faster code reviews and maintained focus.
And the managed side for GitHub Copilot.
A key element is human oversight. The developer always reviews and accepts the code. Plus, technical measures like classifiers to keep conversations on topic, content filters for harmful stuff, and transparency making it clear it's AI generated and might have errors.
The report also talks quite a bit about their sensitive uses program. That's been around since 2017.
Yeah, it predates the big generative AI wave. It's an extra layer of review specifically for AI applications considered high risk or high impact.
What qualifies as high risk?
Things that could really consequentially affect someone's life, their legal status, job opportunities, loans, access to essential services, or anything with a risk of significant injury or impacting human rights. There's a panel of experts involved in these reviews.
And generative AI is now a big part of these reviews.
A huge part. Nearly 70% of the roughly 300 submissions in 2023 were related to generative AI. And it's bringing up new kinds of risks, like those ungrounded inferences.
Chatbot example.
Exactly. A chatbot for workplace benefits starts answering questions about things it shouldn't know, going outside its data. That's a new kind of risk profile. The sensitive uses team helps spot these and recommends mitigations like better grounding and data isolation.
Microsoft Copilot for Security was a case study here too, right?
Right.
Flagged as a sensitive use.
Yes, mainly because security analysts using it could potentially be exposed to harmful content, maybe analyzing malware code or investigating malicious websites.
So how do they handle that sensitivity?
They took an interesting approach. Instead of just blocking everything, they focused on giving the analyst control over when they might see potentially risky content. It would surface the risk, but let the analyst decide whether to proceed.
Analyst control.
Okay. Plus, they reinforced that the analyst is always in charge, improved the messaging to prevent over-reliance on the AI, refined their groundedness metrics, and set up regular reviews of any AI issues found during its phased rollout.
Yeah?
The aim was a powerful and trustworthy tool.
Okay, moving to the third main area. Supporting customers in building AI responsibly. How are they doing that?
They outlined 3 main ways: through specific AI customer commitments, by providing responsible AI tools, and through transparency documentation.
Let's unpack the customer commitments first. Announced June 2023.
Right. It includes things like an AI assurance program to help customers meet regulations. They'll even help with regulator engagement and attest to implementing the NIST framework. They engage with customer councils, have a partner program.
And the big one, the customer copyright commitment.
Yeah, that got a lot of attention. They basically say if a commercial customer gets sued for copyright infringement for using specified services like Azure OpenAI service or Copilots or their output, Microsoft will defend them and pay any judgments if the customer used the built-in guardrails and content filters.
That's a pretty strong guarantee, a signal of confidence.
Definitely. And a way to reduce a major barrier for businesses wanting to adopt these technologies. The partner program is also interesting, getting other companies involved in promoting responsible AI practices.
Then there are the tools. They mentioned releasing 30 tools with over 100 features.
Yeah, a lot of tooling aimed at helping customers with that whole map, measure, manage cycle for their own AI systems.
What kinds of tools for mapping and measuring?
They highlight their commitment to open access, mentioning Pyrate, that Python risk identification tool for generative AI. It's open source on GitHub, helps automate and scale up red teaming efforts.
So helping customers find flaws in their own AI.
Exactly. And then there are the safety evaluations in Azure AI Studio we talked about for pre-deployment testing and ongoing monitoring. monitoring. Plus, the Responsible AI Toolbox, also open source, which offers tools for things like fairness analysis, interpretability, error analysis for more traditional ML models, too.
And tools to help customers manage the risks.
Again, it mirrors their internal approach, offering Azure AI content safety for customers to filter harmful inputs and outputs with configurable settings. They provide templates for those system messages to help customers guide their AI's behavior.
So giving customers similar controls to what they use internally.
Pretty much. And expanding access to tools for those unique generative AI risks, like Prompt Shield for prompt injection attacks, and groundedness detection to help customers see if their AI is making stuff up. They also recently added risks and safety monitoring features to Azure OpenAI
What
Service.
does that monitoring do?
Gives customers real-time info on harmful content being detected, how well their filters are working, and even helps identify potentially abusive users trying to misuse their system.
And the third pillar of customer support was transparency documentation.
Right. They've been publishing transparency notes for platform services since 2019.
What's in a transparency note?
Detailed information, capabilities of the service, its limitations, intended uses, how the responsible AI features work, potential risks. They've published over 30 for services like Azure AI Vision, Azure OpenAI, Document Intelligence.
And they're doing more now for copilots too.
Yeah, beyond just the platform services, things like responsible AI FAQs, clear in-product notices saying, hey, this is AI generated, or showing citations like in Copilot in Bing, trying to make it clearer for the end user what they're interacting with.
Okay, brings us to the final section, learning, evolving, and growing. This sounds more about their internal culture and processes.
Exactly. They really stress that responsible AI isn't just one department's job. It's a company-wide thing, guided by that responsible AI standard. It requires collaboration across research, policy, engineering, everyone.
They have a timeline showing their journey since 2016. It's clear it's been an evolution.
Absolutely. And their governance structure reflects this top-level commitment, board oversight, senior leadership involvement, a responsible AI council co-led by Brad Smith and Kevin Scott.
And a responsible AI champion program.
Yeah, that seems like a way to embed expertise and awareness directly within engineering teams and even their global sales teams. It's described as both a top-down and bottom-up approach.
And this internal community is growing.
Significantly, they say. Over 400 people actively involved, counting full-time roles and these champions. And they emphasize the diverse backgrounds, not just tech people, but ethics, social science, law.
How do they support this community? Training.
Lots of training. Mandatory ethics training for everyone, specialized training for the champions, learning sessions, internal conferences, hackathons focused on AML. They seem to be investing heavily in upskilling their workforce in this area.
Beyond their internal efforts, they're also involved in broader industry initiatives, like co-founding the Frontier Model Forum.
Right, with Anthropic, Google, OpenAI. The goal there is collaborative safety research for the most advanced AI models, sharing best practices, and finding ways to use AI for big societal challenges. They're also active in the partnership on AI, engaging with publishers.
And aligning with frameworks like NIST.
Yes, contributing to and applying the NIST AI risk management framework, participating in the U.S. AI Safety Institute Consortium, involved in ISO standards, working with MITRE on security frameworks for AI, trying to build on and contribute to consensus approaches.
They're also putting resources into external AI research, aren't they?
They are supporting the National AI Research Resource Pilot in the U.S. with compute credits and model access. They have their own Accelerating Foundation Models research program, giving academics access to Azure OpenAI for research focused on alignment, human-AI interaction, and scientific discovery.
And a fellows program.
Yeah, the Microsoft Research AI and Society Fellows program, connecting external researchers with their internal teams to study the societal impacts of AI. It's all about fostering that external research ecosystem.
The report briefly touches on some specific research areas they're working on internally, too.
Just highlights, really. Things like better ways to anticipate harms, AHA, improving red teaming at ATEST++, finding privacy security issues in code-generating models.
Also measuring risks.
Right. Using LLMs to help automate measurement, developing better metrics that align with user needs like productivity, using synthetic data responsibly for training and evaluation.
And managing risks through better transparency.
Yeah, tools to help users assess AI outputs, understanding how people actually interact with explanations, making code suggestions more helpful, communicating uncertainty better. Lots of human-computer interaction research focus there.
Finally, they touch on tuning into global perspectives, acknowledging the current imbalance in AI development.
Which is a really important point. They recognize AI's impact is global, but development is currently skewed. They mention engaging with groups like the UN, USAA, their Africa Research Institute, to understand needs and perspectives in developing economies.
What are their goals there?
Two main ones listed: promoting globally inclusive policymaking and actually developing technology that's relevant globally, not just for advanced economies. They mention co-chairing a UNESCO council and fellowships with the Stimson Center focused on global perspectives. It's about broadening the conversation.
So, wrapping this all up,
Yeah.
what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into their transparency report?
Well, I mean, it's clear they're putting a massive, multifaceted effort into responsible AI. It's not just one thing. It's governance, tools, processes, research, collaboration, and the emphasis on iteration learning and evolving really comes through. They don't pretend to have all the answers, but they're building structures to try and find them.
Yeah, the sheer scope is impressive. And that iterative govern, map, measure, manage framework seems central to everything. Plus that strong commitment to transparency, laying it all out like this. So for you, our listeners, hopefully this gave you a solid handle on how at least one major player is approaching this incredibly important and frankly quite daunting challenge of responsible AI without you having to read the entire dense report yourself.
And maybe it leaves us all with a final thought to chew on. Given the speed of AI innovation, how do we really ensure these kinds of safeguards, these frameworks, these reviews keep pace? What's the right balance between moving fast and ensuring safety and fairness? How will these approaches truly shape AI's future impact?
That's the big question, isn't it? Something to definitely keep thinking about. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.